How long is it going to last for? That thing?
Oh, it'll last.
Okay. Jeez. Oh my God. Right. Okay, so I'm going to talk about happiness, all right? So we have, this is work we've been doing for since 2006 when we kind of arbitrarily came across this idea of being able to do it. So, you know, I've been in computational social science for a good while and thought about, and lots of other fields, as you kind of know. And so this just, this idea of measuring emotions came across and some of you have heard it, so I apologize, but came across the horizon, and you know, we've built you know, kind of this crazy story. So it's pretty exciting. So next Tuesday we'll have, and I'll mention it again, we'll have hedonometer.org is going to go live, hopefully. But you know, it has its own little Twitter feed and all sorts of stuff. So I'll show you a bit of that. I have to show you that. I wanted to also just point out, so, okay, so, you know, this course, right, one of the things I mentioned at the start was academic output, so we're now up to, we've had a bunch of things appear recently, or, you know, go into a review, so it's 14 papers now with fun pictures and so on, so that will grow nicely as we go on. So there's that. I had this piece here, so I guess some of you must know this, but not everyone does. So I just want to point out that these things, this is rhyming slang. Did we talk about this, right? I mean, that these things rhyme, right? Yes. Okay. Just to be clear, right? So fun is 1, kangaroo is 2, bumblebee is 3, staying alive is 5, the end is 10. You don't have to be Einstein. It's not. All right. So okay. Okay, fine. And Kevin Bacon is 7. You drop the Kevin. Yeah. And it's just bacon. Okay. So if you didn't know that, because this is how good rhyming slang works like that. And then you have no idea what anyone is saying unless you're on the team. You know, and there is some idea, I think, that it was a good way of keeping away from the authorities a little bit, right? So you have all this gibberish coming out, and everyone, you know, kind of knows what's going on, except, and years ago, when I was playing cricket in high school, and we were playing against this kind of foe of ours, and they had all this rhyming slang they'd made up, because you make up your own rhyming slang. But they, you know, admitted later on that they didn't know what they were talking about by the end of it, but there was all sorts of nonsense coming out of people's heads. So it can go wrong. It can definitely go wrong. Anyway, that's what's sitting there. There's a, I'll tweet this, I guess. This quote of Stephen Hawking has been around for a long time, right? That the 21st century is going to be the century of complexity. And certainly biology. But this is a nice piece. It's in Scientific American. And what they get into is really what else is going on is data, right? And this is a bit of a funny thing. The hallmark, that's a bit of a funny quote in a way. I mean, that's not what complexity is, but the hallmark of being able to, it's not even a hallmark, but the ability to study complex systems is, you know, it's a data story. And anyway, they're going about data scientists, blah, blah, blah. Nate Silver, everyone's in there. Doing good things, people. All right, so happiness. I think that's it. So we'll see how far we go with this. Tuesday, I have this kind of coda for the whole course, which is you know, about complexification. You know, why complexify is the theme there, and so I'll give you kind of a narrative of you know, the universe, basically. The universe in a nutshell, except for the starting bit. That's kind of tricky. Okay, all right. So these guys. So what I want to tell you about is how we do this. You know, a good part of this will be about how we measure happiness properly, what that means. And there's many, many other pieces here that I can show you, and we'll see how far we get with that. But there are lots and lots of results that come out of this. This, you know, and I'll have some of this in the final lecture. You know, science sort of, some people will talk about the three-legged stool, right? So you have experiments and simulations perhaps, and then you have observation of reality, and you have theory. And you get this very funny story from some people that it's all about theory, or it's all about, you know, and there are different camps set up, and physics has sort of split itself into experimental and theoretical. You know, you get tagged with a label. People will say a paper is just methodological, right? It's just a method. There's no, they love to do this. They love to do this. But you know, science is sort of a mixture of all of those three things, and when it all collides together, then you're set, right? So you actually care about reality, and your theory matches that, and your experiments and simulations all comport, then you're set. And so for some of the harder things as we go through, as we understand more and more about these systems that I've been talking about, there's a lot of description that goes on to start with. That's fine. That is good science. There's a lot of describing. And if you look back at physics, we spent a long time making some very horrible mistakes about the universe, right? I mean, just the whole planets around the sun business, we were sure about that, because circles are a really good theory. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. And you got burned at the stake if you, in some cases, somewhat literally, unfortunately. Somewhat literally. Okay, literally. Literally. All right, so we'll get to this. This is one of my favorite pieces. We'll see how stable it is over time, but there's a fair amount of stability to this, certainly in the early stages of Twitter. So Twitter, this is from Twitter, which has evolved a lot to its awesomeness that it is now, and we'll see where it is in a few years. But this is 2009, midway through 2009 to the end of 2010. So Twitter's growing pretty well through that period. And so what we've taken here is every day, 0 to 24 hours, and this is just a repeat of the cycle. We've simply taken all the tweets and we use this measure of happiness that I'll come to. It's a very simple kind of word counting thing. And we get an estimate for the happiness level for between 12 and 1 a.m., 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. and so on. So if people are tweeting and so they're doing different things, right? I mean, they're up late here, of course, if that's generally speaking. But if they're awake at 5 or 6 a.m., it's pretty positive. And then it goes down through the whole day till about 10 o'clock. And I call this the daily unraveling of the human mind. There was a piece in Science last year or the year before. It was a nice piece about social scientists wading into what is it? Physicists wading into social science, basically into the Twitter stream. Totally got that headline wrong, but I think I have this line in there, which was quite nice. So and then it picks up again, right? So people are they're a little more controlled in the morning. It's coffee, we're getting it going, it's all right. And so this is something this is based on thousands and thousands of words. This is just a plot for 5 words, okay? This is a different thing. So this is swearing. And so there are 5 very different words, some of which you're not allowed to say on television. This is George Carlin business. And they have very different frequencies of occurrence. So what we've done is just normalize them so that if you add it up across 24, you get 1 or what's a percentage? You get 100%, right? So this is their relative abundance as a function of time of day. So yeah, it drops off in the very similar, I mean, it's not exactly inverse, but yeah, it goes up through the day, and then we start to reset. So this is the way that humans are like Windows machines, right? We need to be rebooted every night, and some Macs, of course, but we need to be rebooted. Otherwise, everything goes to bits, all right? So best to have arguments and meetings. No, arguments are probably more fun here, but meetings probably, get them done early. Lose the plot, right? So we'll get to that. That was just a little teaser. I mean, we've found all sorts of things, and a lot of them are sensible and reasonable, and that helps us, present things that are a bit odder, that are maybe not as obvious to people. Because we're talking about social phenomena, people have just so stories, at beck and call. I mean, they'll deliver. Well, that's obvious because blah, 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 and they'll tell you about their family probably, right? And of course, if you'd said the opposite thing, they'd also have a nice story for that. So it is a bit of a funny business. There's a lot of that is completely obvious and completely wrong. People will say that about the same piece of work. That usually means you've got something somewhat interesting. It's trivial, of course, and then other people are like, "That's terrible. It's wrong." So I don't know. It's a strange business.
Do focus groups or something where you introduce like opposite facts to a couple different focus groups and see the story, see whether they agree or not?
Someone might have done that. I think that's fantastic, and it sort of fits with that whole the music lab experiment as well, right? Because it's justifying. We're very good, right? This is our storytelling mechanism kicks in, and this all makes sense. Yeah. And if enough people say it, that's fine, right? Right. So looking back in time, we have happiness being a bit of a big deal for various people who obviously were doing quite well for themselves. They weren't tilling the fields, but so we've got some of the Greeks were running around saying, yes, it's all about happiness, and you people down there should have some, you know. Eudaimonia was this term that we have preserved and turned into an English word, I suppose. But it's this idea of flourishing. So this is a very nice term. This is not happiness, right? I mean, and of course, yes, we're framing it as happiness, but it's a sort of a positivity thing. We'll look at other emotions as well. But in a very general way, happiness is kind of the dominant story, or the positivity is sort of the dominant, like the big signal that we have. You know, whether we go toward or be repelled by something, sort of this big axis of positivity. There are different types of negativity that I'll come to, but and we said it the other day, right? Disgust, right? Fear, anger, and sadness are sort of the four, the distinct things. So this is the Tolstoy story, right? There's only one way for families to be happy. It's the opening quote of Anna Karenina. But every sad family is sad, and every unhappy family is unhappy in its own specific way. Jared Diamond uses that in Guns, Germs, and Steel, just to kind of walk off the path a little bit. But as this Anna Karenina principle is why places the story for why places was difficult for civilization to flourish. If they're missing one of those pieces, right? There's a lot of ways for civilizations not to take off in the sense that they're just missing one of these things. Or if your family is missing one of these pieces, then it's unhappy, right? You have to have all these other components working. So for the Diamond story is, if you don't have a cultivatable kind of crop, something that you can figure out how to, turn into wheat or rice, or you don't have an animal that will be your pal, like cows and so on, et cetera, and you need the conditions of seasons and things. If you're missing one of those, doesn't matter about the other guys, now you're toast, right? So there are lots of ways for things to fall apart. It's kind of the story. All right, but so it's flourishing, and this is a kind of a very appealing kind of word, I think. I mean, in some ways, and I think, you want society to do well, right? And I think of it as flourishing on all levels as kind of an objective, right? So that it's not just about pure individualism, it's not just about the good of the whole, because if you focus on those, things tend to go a little funny. But you want to have things going well at all scales, right? States and cities and regions and so on. This was interpreted in various ways. For some of them it meant wine and food, there was a little discussion from some of these philosophers about how to achieve this state. And others were more about it's achieving your full potential, right? Whatever that was, just doing the right thing. More recently, you have Bentham running around talking about who I believe is wheeled out. And is that right? It's a stuffed.
His head was shrunk, and he has a wax model from the.
Yeah, it's somewhere. Is it Oxford or something? I don't know where it is. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Okay. So. Very macabre end for him, I suppose, is that he actually still exists in some sort of quasi-wax state. I don't know what, just a bad decision all around. But anyway, but his idea was actions that you would take to think. How do you take actions, right? So why would you choose a particular course of action? And it was to maximize the happiness of all, right? So this leaves out the scale thing, I suppose, but. And talking about it, well, then you want to measure happiness, you need to, and so on. This whole idea of utility function was a different business altogether. Anything can be turned into it, right? Anything can go into it, right? Yeah. Whether your football team won or lost, that's in there, right? And then we have, this is a funny one. So we have Jefferson, right? We have the pursuit of happiness. And so here's an early draft of this, and I apologize if you've seen it. But it's true that, of course, these things were drafted, but it's true that it was apparently life, liberty, and property, which didn't kind of have a kick, it just didn't have it. So eventually scribbled it out, and it became the pursuit of happiness, and that sort of gets stuck in the mindset, and agrees with modern psychological work, right? So it's not just for the eggheads and the well-to-do who are it's all good. I have this plantation and so on. I think I'll go and figure out how to be happy. This is what people will say if you ask them, right? I mean, there are lots of studies that say, what do you want? And some will say, I want a Porsche, And the economists will say, I want to maximize my utility function, obviously, which may have happiness in it. I don't know. So that's what people say. There's evidence that people who report themselves to be happy live longer. And these are hard things to get at, but this is work that's been done for a long time. So this is a bit of a positive psychology, right? It's a bit of a funny area for psychology, which is absolutely devoted itself to pathological behavior for its entire lifespan, pretty much, because again, there's this wide diversity of ways for things to go wrong, and it's fascinating, and you become obsessed with it. At country scales, you have, and so Bhutan is somewhat famous for saying we're not going to make any money, but we could make happiness. So they talk about the gross national happiness. Okay, and I'm not sure if it's really true. I don't know how well measured that is, but there are indices for, certainly, these are a couple of examples. The UK has one now. I think something like every 3 months, the government calls something like 20,000 people and says, hey, how you doing? And checks a box somewhere. And so it's what we're going to do, of course, is look at how people behave, just watch what they say. And in the past, it's always been asking people, which is fair enough, right? I mean, that's fair enough, and our work is complementary to that. But typically, it's been sort of questionnaires where you're not happy, you're okay, you're very happy, or maybe 4 points, right? And they're not. It's not a number scale, right? It's not which is okay. But then it's of course turned into one, right? So you just say, okay, that's a 0, that's a 1, and that's a 2, and now we'll add them up and stuff, and we'll average them. This is a plot of, so this is GNP across here, gross national product, and then a bunch of countries, which maybe it's hard to see, but so Spain is in here, Luxembourg is killing it out here with the money, the United States is out here. But you see that, yes, when you've got not much money, you're all over the place, right? This is not so great. And then, but once you get up to a certain amount of average income and so on, whatever it is, then it starts to be very unlikely, incredibly unlikely that you would have a overall unhappiness. I'm not sure where Hungary is. Hungary's kind of a grumpy place. Okay, so, all right. I'm sure at the level of towns and so on, you might have some things here. But there is some evidence now. So there was the Easterlin paradox, right? The Easterlin paradox is that money doesn't buy happiness, essentially, right? So it does up to a little way. Once you've got the very basics going, then it doesn't really seem to increase. There's evidence now that it goes up just a little bit, and I'll probably have this on a slide, but it goes up just a little bit, maybe, but it is, so it's distinct from it. Of course, we're measuring happiness. Everyone wants to know how to make money out of it. That's the first question. How do you do that? Like, how do I invest? I mean, people ask us this all the time. And there are outfits on Wall Street that are using sentiment detection from Twitter to go up and down, right? There was a very nice moment the other day. I think was it human behavior with some algorithms on top? So there was so AP, the Associated Press, was its Twitter feed was hacked, and a tweet came out from AP. This was on which day? Tuesday? Tuesday? And it said the White House, the 2 bombings in the White House, the 2 bombs have gone off in the White House, and President Obama is injured. That was the tweet. Breaking, right? So it comes out, and the stock market went, and then 2 minutes later was back up. And it dropped, whatever it was, 100 points or something. And it'd be interesting to see how much of that was people just, their belief in the United States vanishing or changing very abruptly, like, I think I'll invest in gold, or like whatever they were doing, versus, and it has to be people to start with. I mean, I don't think a machine picks up on that one tweet, which presumably was retweeted quite a bit, but maybe there's some cascading with algorithms on top, right? Some of the the high frequency trading stuff just starts to it starts to run in the same direction. I don't know, but it went, okay. So one tweet could just, there's the Achilles heel, boom, the whole thing. But it saved itself, because the AP, of course, saw this pretty quickly and said, that's not true. So you had to catch up with that lie, which is, going everywhere. Anyway, craziness. All right, so a lot of people like to say this about what we're doing as well, which is fair enough, so I'm going to say it. Actually, they might want to say it. I'm going to say it to get it out of the way first. So we have that the science is, all well in because we're watching what people do, right? And the policy that you might end up with in a simplistic kind of view of things is, well, let's just make everyone happy and let's just hand out the SOMA, which is, whatever it is, marijuana or sports on TV or, oh, we already have that. Okay, so because if you're just trying to maximize happiness, the wheels are going to come off in another direction, right? The economy just tanks and, okay. Happiness tomorrow, for example. That would be very, very bad, All right, so we're not going to do those things. We want to build this thing, a hedonimeter. And there is this complicated scale here. And we want to do what was this idea of, maybe it's not in here, it's from the 1800s, this idea of a hedonimeter being exactly something that would measure emotional states in real time. We'll go for happiness because it's and I'll explain some more about that because it's kind of easy to get at in some ways. Fantastic to have it in real time. It's not survey-based, right? You don't have to figure it out later on. It's just fitting in with what we can do now with all sorts of measurements of people's behavior, right? I mean, there's Google Flu Trends, for example, which is not perfect, but okay, right? I mean, that started to mess with itself because, right, we had this idea that there was going to be a lot of flu, and then all the vaccine ran out because people started to believe it and messed with itself. So, but things like car sales, all sorts of other pieces can be measured much, right, sort of at the level of today rather than being found out 4 weeks later on. We need it to be transparent. We like this thing. We want it to be not a black box the computer science champions would produce, and that's totally okay. But we want it to be somewhat scrutable, but not, We'll see how far we get with that. All right, so eventually someone says, come on, I have this little genetic algorithm for you. What could go wrong? Just one little genetic algorithm. Okay, so maybe that has to happen for us. But we want at least to start with something we can understand at least where it's going wrong, because it's probably going wrong. Of course, we need it to be fast, based on written expression because of words, because words, that's the thing we can get at. Maybe we get at images at some point. I know, Facebook is enjoying that, I think, the possibility of being able to find what's in the background. Do you have babies? Do you have things we can sell you? Very, very sneaky, because, photos give a lot, right? I guess you could outsource that to Mechanical Turk. Just please tell us what's in this photo, and then we'll let you into your, we'll let you into the site you're trying to get to. Okay. It needs to have human evaluation in some way. We can't, it just has to. I mean, that's what it is. Non-reactive means we're not asking people, we're not messing with them. We're not saying, how happy are you? And you start to think, I don't know, why are you, what, is my mother going to find out? It's just, I'm happy. And we want it to be complementary, right? It's added to, it doesn't replace, it's added to. Certainly something that's improvable, and we've done that. So, all right, so we messed around with a bunch of different things. There's opinion finder, for example, was one early black box that we tried. It comes out of computational linguistics, trying to find opinions in text. It didn't scale very well, and also just simply didn't work so well, right? So it would kind of just try and find a word in a text, and now and then it would say this is a positive word or this is a negative word, and you'd get that. But it pretty much gave a flat line, right? We fed it all this stuff from blogs, and with a time series, and it just came out kind of flatlined. I think it was sort of a 4-to-1 ratio of negative to positive, maybe. But so that seemed interesting, and we had a little bit of a blip around the World Cup in soccer, and we thought, it's doing something. So we told ourselves a little story about that, but that turned out to be completely a lie. So we were casting around, and it's sort of left out of this in a way now. But I just want to say it that we tried a lot of different things. It just failed horribly. We're just trying to get it, it's trying to get a heartbeat out of something, right? It's like, we're trying to hook up the cable so that at least it looks like it's alive. So just searching around on the Google thing for word happiness, like the measures of emotional content of words, all right? So I'm searching around, search. And I came across this study, Effective Norms for English Words, and it was done in 1999. I'm not sure why, to be honest. I don't know why. People have used it for various things, but you had to write to them, send them an email, and they said, okay, here it is. So it's a little kind of closed. I mean, we've made our stuff that we've built on this, and we've made it very, very shareable. It's free, you can take it. Anyway, they would give it to you, but then it's a little close. All right, so this funny looking thing was handed out to poor, unsuspecting undergraduates at Florida, University of Florida, I believe it was. And they were given words, and then you had to scribble in what you thought about that word, right? Okay, so very unhappy to happy. It's kind of a 5-point scale. Well, there's neutral in the middle, but it's really a 9-point scale. And so we've had some issues with that. You really need this looks like you do actually end up with these 5 things popping up and these half ones not getting quite as many votes because of the structure of it. So we've changed that to be a bit better. So they had 2 other dimensions, and so this comes from psychological theory or work in psychology dating back to the 50s. So you give people all these semantic. What was done was people were given semantic differentials like rough to smooth, happy to sad, right? And you turn them around different ways and give them to rate things, right? So there's some axes, and and I don't know. You think of all sorts of things, right? Angry to something. So this is excitement, and for some reason it's back to front, right? So you see something, there's something you're presented with. Are you excited? Do you feel excited? Various. Like absolutely not to yes. And then this is dominance. So this is, these are funny terms. Valence is ridiculous. This means happiness, right? It's nothing to do with chemistry. Dominance. And we use that word in our first thing because we published in psychology. We're trying to be good people. Now we just rudely say happiness. Dominance, right? So this is, do you feel powerful? So this is another big point of this is how do you feel? How do you feel when you see a text? So we're not necessarily going to be able to tell what's in someone's head when they write something. So this is a very social measure of emotional states, right? Because if someone has a big frown on their face, but inside is happiness and thinking about bunnies and all sorts of things, I can't tell. They look grumpy, and my reaction is, wow, and it's sort of true. Right? Some people's faces are unfortunately set in certain ways, like, wow, this person just hates everyone. But they're like, why does everyone think I hate them? Okay.
Do you use those pictures, or is that just from that study?
It's from that study, actually. Yeah. So we moved to a smiley face type structure. There's some parabolas involved for the right. There's some very thoughtful tuning of the shape of the mouth.
There's a lot of really strange ones like this out.
These kinds of things. Yeah. Right. So this is.
That you give to children. It's like.
Yeah. This is. Okay. This is what they did. Right. I want to, and some of you know this, what we want to move to is, so this is from, I'm just going to tell you, this is from Scott McCloud, right, who wrote these 3 books on comics, Understanding Comics, Reinventing Comics, and Making Comics, and they're just an extraordinary production. So there's these comic books, these thick comic books about comics, right, and they're really, and everything's in there. They're quite beautiful in my view of things. And so this is where we're going. We're going in different directions, but one is we're getting in 12 other languages or 11 others, so we'll have 12 total or 10 total languages assessed, right? So we're going to have a lot more coverage. So there's going to be Russian and German, I think. Are we doing Korean? It's just Arabic's in there. It's a very big, crazy set of things. So that's going now. That's pretty expensive undertaking. So this is from Making Comics. So this is about how to give your characters expressions, right? So this is a sense of a very neutral face, right? And in fact, the story is the muscles are actually not. So he's talking about the musculature. The muscles are not active in here. They're relaxed, right? So this is a version of a neutral face. And so then and I missed this. I guess I skipped it. But there are, you think about the actual musculature of people, right? So this is anger, disgust, fear, joy, and we transfer those with our face as much as what we say, and jump around and so on. So what we've really done is this. We've combined these two, joy and sadness. But the plan is to use these pictures, or some version of these pictures, to which will be an improvement upon the previous one, which for us was smiley faces and then those kind of funny looking ones. It's hard to see, but then these are dialing up those expressions by increasing the the muscles essentially are tightening up. So you go through joy to laughter, sadness gets up to grief. So surprise is an interesting one. So this is surprise, then there's shock here, right? This is alertness. So that's an interesting transition. So this is sort of in some ways, kind of a neutral thing that is added usually to some of these other pieces. I mean, shock, fair enough, has a negative feel to it. But there are 4 clearly negative ones, and then one positive one, which is the Anna Karenina story again. And he has some very nice stuff about how you can combine them, right? And this is just combining that sort of third dimension of them. I guess so this is that anger and joy gives you cruelty. Anger and joy gives you cruelty. Anger and sadness gives you betrayal. But again, it's a sort of not quite a linear combination, but it's the muscles going in one direction, they're trying to go in another direction, and you get an expression on top of that. Disgust and surprise is you ate it. Anyway, so fantastic, really, really just terrific stuff. But that would be one next piece we're going into. All right, fine. Talk. All right, so we took this study. So it's ANU, what's called ANU, and we took these words, about 1,000 words, and there are 1,000 words chosen by psychologists, right? So it's not chosen by the people. These are words that are thought to have meaning, so they come from another data set. These are meaningful words. So love is in there, but chicken isn't. Pancakes is in there. Church. It's kind of a funny group of words. And we'll do something which seems to be a bit of a struggle for people to understand, but we'll go and look at what people do. We'll use it, which words they use, right? And we'll have thee and of, we'll rate those, we'll do all of them, right? And then, okay, we'll come to that. But this is using the ANU study. Actually, when our first paper came out, it was just after Michael Jackson had died, and it was part of the paper. I built this little, this little mock-up to show you how it worked. So I got an extra tag. I was a kid when all this stuff came out. Thriller was quite scary. Okay, so these are words that in this ANU data set, so we don't have those words in the ANU data. Seen isn't in there, always isn't there, careful's not in there, but we have beauty, queen, movie, mother, love. So you find those, it's very simple. You throw away all context, very dopey, and then you count them up. All right, so these are the words that appear in that song that we have a score for, and here are their scores. So love is 8.72, so it's a 1 to 9 scale, if I didn't say that clearly, right? The lowest thing gets a 1, the highest one gets a 9, and you average over people. ANU, they had men and women and some other aspects like that, so they had some different pieces. Baby appears 3 times, girl appears 4 times. So lie, right? Depends how it's used, but generally when people see it in out of context, they're going to think it's bad. They think of a lie, not lying down, and so they give it it's a very low score, 2.79. All right, so you simply say, okay, well, we've got 4 of these, so 4 times 6.87, you add all these guys up, you weight them, that's what this is, so it's the average score for each word, multiply them, divide by the total number of words for which we have scores, and you get a score, 7.1, right? That's going to turn out to be quite high on our little scale. But we don't believe that's reasonable for this. This is too small a text. And it's a little perilous actually just demonstrating in this way. We certainly would never rate one sentence or a tweet. And it's actually hard, this is a real problem for natural language processing, right? I mean, an individual sentence with no intonation added to it, you can just read it, is hard for people to understand, right? So what was the example? She didn't kill him. Is that one? There are lots of good examples. So you can say, she didn't kill him, or she didn't kill him, or she didn't kill him, or she didn't kill him. And they're all different, right? And there's one that has 7, that people trot out a lot, that has 7 words. It's completely different, right, each time. So that's, very hard things. We'll get to that. We'll sort of look at, we're starting to look at phrases in very interesting ways. If you took all of the album Thrill, you get 6.3. All of Michael Jackson, you get 6.4. All right, so that's pretty good. So, all right, so let's take all of song lyrics. And again, this is using our not very good instrument, which we're going to improve. It's going to be very much like a microscope with sort of a bad lens. We make a new lens, and we can see better, which is really quite remarkable. And there's some very, very interesting things in language that just popped out for free. And that's what I'll at least get through in this lecture. So this is this mean happiness score. So we're still calling it valence because we want to be good people. And it's pretty messy because it's, our instrument isn't great. But this is going back to 1960 up to about 2007. And so we're just taking, this is from a lyrics site, we're just taking all the lyrics for a particular year, putting them in just throwing them all in a big bucket. And what you see is this overall decline in positivity or happiness, right? So it sort of starts to level off perhaps out here. But so we can think about, so we need to figure out why this is. And so I have to say that no one does this, that no one looks at the actual words that are driving the scores up and down. There are a few competing methods, but a very obvious thing to do is to say, well, why is that? Right? Why is this going up and down? Right. So I'll show you that in a second. The first thing you might also worry about is, well, okay, this is just some batch of words. How do you know that it's robust? So the way we treated it in this first case was to say, well, let's just take 750 words. We'll randomly select 750 words and score it. And then we'll do that again, and we'll do that again. And we did that with a batch of 100. So this is some normalized version of it. But again, for all of those, you get, it's messy, but you get a decline, right? So that's an indication of the robustness of this measure. There are lots of other pieces pointing to its robustness, but it's funny. I mean, I'll show you that it correlates with all sorts of things like number of gun deaths and per capita and all sorts of stuff. But it is a different measure, right? It's not as if we've built another thermometer and it's just going to measure temperature, and we need to calibrate that exactly with temperature. Okay, so music lyrics. So what's this decline about? Well, so this is just a few of the genres. This is looking actually at just the titles, because we had different sets. We had one set which was just titles, which is from an ancient kind of data set, or not ancient, but an old effort to, so if you put your CD into your computer, it would know which songs they were, right? And you could have a little thing pop up on your Linux machine, which would say, here are the names of the songs. So it was a crowdsourced sort of thing. What is it, CCDB? Anyway, so we have, this is just song titles. And song titles are good, right? Because they're pithy. They just have, you don't have too much extraneous stuff in there. And so you see pretty good stability for genres. I mean, this is our first indication this thing is working sensibly. And also that they're reasonably spread apart, right? So gospel and soul's up the top. Metal is down the bottom. And so we see this is punk. This is rap and hip hop. Rock is here. Pop is up here, actually, right? And reggae is here. Country and Western. You country and Western fans out there? It's somewhere in here as well. We couldn't.
Metal has gotten a little happier.
So metal, of course, and this genre thing is really extraordinary. I mean, it's metal, but there's every little subset in there, right? Whatever I mentioned the other, right? Some horrible Norwegian death, black Norwegian heavy something, that's in there. And it's metal and industrial. Yeah. So I don't know. We should use our new instrument, I guess, to go with this again. But so what's happened is, why has it declined over time? Well, it's not just that new music has appeared. New emotional niches have been, occupied. They've been accessed and occupied profitably by different types of music. So, and they're pretty robust. So we have an improved version. This is the initial version of these, what we call word shift graphs. So let's take, so let's go back to this. Right, so we're going to look at take all the song lyrics that we have after 1980 and the ones that appear before 1980, and just put them in two buckets, and then see why is this generally lower than this one. So if you do that, so we're taking as a base, we're taking the previous, we're taking the ones before 1980, it's just sort of a funny title there, as the base, and then we're looking at what's happened for it to go down. And we'll have a more elaborate thing. So you see that, generally speaking, all of these guys are talking about why it's dropping, right? So it's because those words have a negative. Okay, this is funny. There are 4 types of ways that a word can contribute to a drop in average or an increase in average. And so for a drop in average, it could be that they're negative words that are appearing more, and that's all of these guys on this side. And I will change this with some others. It could be that there are positive words that are being used less, and this could be some going the other way. So this is a negative word that's actually being used less, so that's actually making the pre-1980 look a little better. And there are a couple of words that are being used more before 1980 that are also, after 1980, that are making it look good as well. I can't believe I said that wrong. Right, yeah, so after 1980, we have a little less lonely, sad, trouble, loneliness, a little more life in God. Those things are helping, but the majority of the story is bad. Right? So this is going to be very much kind of like a molecule particle thing. Yes, there's some sort of general trend in one direction. Some guys are going the other way, but it adds up. And so, yeah, so it's sick, fear, hit, hell, fall, sin, loss, death. It says that metal stuff is kind of starting to get in there. Now, this is not weighted by the popularity of these songs, right? That's a whole other business. We could do that as well. I mean, we just, this is a sort of a test case. And that would be another thing. So if you just take out the subsets, right? So these are words that are appearing more, so this is making things go down. These are words that are appearing less, and that's also making things go down, so these are, and then these are the pieces that are going the other way, and there just aren't so many of those. You can see these are quite small bars. Lonely is the big one that's helping after 1980, but just doesn't add up. All right, so we have a more elaborate version of that. I'll get to that. If you have the top, so we have 20,000 artists, and then we just took ones that have at least 50 songs and at least 1,000 words for which we have scores. And so this is the top, right? These are the ones that are top. We had. I know, it's true. Okay, so some people in the audience will, be very, depending on the audience, be very happy about the Beach Boys and Buddy Holly and Earth, Wind & Fire. But yeah, so S Club 7 is manufactured. Does anyone a fan of S Club 7? Yes. So it's just one of these great manufactured English ones. Like, oh, you people are very good looking and can kind of sing. We're going to put you together in a, right? Yeah, and they can do it. I mean, they write very popular, enjoyable lyrics, and they sell like crazy. Yes.
Which one of these bands is your favorite?
Oh my God, kind of a fan of the Thompson Twins actually. So I don't know where they are, but anyway. Okay, what about this? See, it's paradoxical because some people quite enjoy this music. So, all right. But
have you seen the IT Crowd?
is it a movie? No.
No, a
What?
British TV show.
Oh yeah, right. No, I haven't.
There's something about a cradle of filth. It's not a literal cradle of filth. That would be awful.
Jeez. Yeah, and if you get into the lyrics of some of these, they are pretty bad. They are genuinely pretty bad. And this is, of course, also with a threshold. If you take that threshold away, you get even worse. Just the names, right? I mean, just the names of these things. So Metallica is, of course, famous, right? So I will say that I've never heard of any of these others, but no? Yeah, pretty much, yeah. No, when I was in high school, there was Iron Maiden, AC/DC. These were things that one would listen to, but also Bryan Adams, right? I mean, it was a very complicated time. Yeah, okay, great. So lots of other things. So blogs. This is, do I have this? Maybe this is sort of out of order. Okay, so, yeah. So we also looked at blogs, and we looked at sentences that came from a site called We Feel Fine. I sort of apologize if this is out of order. All right, I guess I just chewed it down to that. And we had this fellow Sepp Kamvar speak recently, and maybe some of you came to that talk, but it was a fantastic talk. And we also had Jonathan Harris. He was here a few years ago. He was an artist in residence, actually, for 6 months. So Sepp is now at the media school, MIT Media Lab, and after working at Google for a while, and it was at Stanford before that. So as a pair, they did this kind of extraordinary thing. Sorry, it's not in these slides, but of trying to measure, trying to do what we've been doing, and certainly motivating what we've been doing because we came across their work. But they would go through blogs and find, I feel something. They'd find every sentence that had that. So it was a very nice thing. Or I am feeling. And then the word that was associated right there, they would pull that out as the emotion, right? I'm feeling quixotic, right? Curious. They would pull it out, and so they have this beautiful site, wefeelfine.org, which is still around. It's sort of really a work of art. And they would, so you could explore these sentences in all sorts of ways. And they made a very useful API where you could just go and grab all of these blog sentences. And in some cases, they have metadata, right? So for some reason, people would put their age on their blog, or gender and so on. And so this is for Blogger Age. And so we have people who are claiming to be 13 and 14-year-olds, and so we've binned these because as you go out, bloggers, there's not so many of a certain age. And blogs, of course, have kind of basically evaporated. They've really declined. They've had to force it off, I think, for the site. And so this is happiness as a function of age, right? And the interesting thing about this is, well, first of all, that it goes up and down, right? And it's very bad here. There's between sort of 45 and 60, it's doing all right, and it starts to fall apart. Is that if you go back and look at the psychological literature, the theory is that this seems kind of reasonable, actually. But what people do seem to find is the opposite. They find the so-called U-shape story for happiness. Because based on asking people how happy they are. And it's true that, in this period, right, there's a lot of things going on, and maybe it's hard and so on, but, it's a very good time, right? I mean, people have children, the work is, going well and so on. Or, I mean, they're moving through their career, and it's not perfect, but there's a sense that that it could go this way. So this is, of course, just looking at what people say. All right, so let's look at that in a little more detail. So this is people who are in that top range, the ones sort of 40, at the time of this, say 45 to 55 or 50 to 60, compared to people who are 14 years old. And so they are less happy, and so this is the story for that, right? So they're using, and this is a much more elaborate kind of word shift thing. So these are the words on this side are driving the score down, right? And it's all these ones in blue: sick, hate, stupid, sad, depressed, bored, lonely, alone, mad, pain, upset, fat, dead, scared, terrible, confused, and hurt. They're using life a little less, but generally it's these negative words. I need to look at that. There are a couple of words, so they say friend, and people find they say these words a little more often, which helps. There's a little less time, which is helping as well. But, this is middle school, right? The texture of, the emotional texture of middle school is not a good one. No. 2 years away for me. Great. So you can look at, so you can do these word shifts even when there's no change in the score. So when we looked at people who declare themselves as male and female in this data set, and it's not everyone does, so it's a smaller portion of it, the scores are very similar, and that comports with scores from self-reported scores as well. So what you see here is, okay, well, it's a word shift thing, but there's no big change, but you can just look at the way words are moving around, and you see
In the top 15, so you see more hurt, hate, sad, alone, stupid, guilty, sick, scared, lost. This is being used by females. And then on the other side, these are positive words that are being used more often. And the only one that men are using more often is good, which encapsulates all emotional content. It's good. Yeah, good. Right, so you can kind of do a lot with good. So, well done, males. Anyway, so there's more emotional variance. Okay, that seems to come out of this story. All right, so we moved along from this to a study of our own. So we're fine. All right, fine. We've got this data set, but it's kind of a weird one. It doesn't cover words very well. The ski jump is in that list, for example. It's not so good. It doesn't appear much in text. And we moved up to this. So we took several years of Twitter. We took hundreds of years of Google Books, right? So this is the Google Books project where they're scanning books. I think it's some enormous fraction. Actually, I'm not sure what it is now, but it's sort of maybe around 10% of all books have been scanned and put on. A lot of them are technical recently too, which is a mess. Music lyrics, as we've seen for 50 years, and we have the New York Times for 20 years, 87 to 2007, very rich, kind of interesting. It's the paper of record. Twitter, by the way, is the microblog of record, and I don't know if you know this, but the Library of Congress has said, we will keep all the tweets, for prosperity, right? Posterity, I should say. Posterity.
For prosperity.
Yeah, right, I guess so, right, yeah. Word adjacency. At least I didn't say llama, I guess. That would have been more concerning. Yeah, but they don't know how to do it, right? It's really hard. It's a lot of data. Where do they put it? They're like, can't we just put it on this computer over here? So that's being sorted out. That's hard. So what we did is we took it's a very simple thing, but it hadn't been done. We took the 5,000 most frequently used words from those 4 corpora, merged them together, and we get slightly over 10,000. And they're very different in some ways. So Twitter, of course, is a lot of swearing. Ha 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 appears in there, and ha ha, and you get all the ha's all the way out. Actually, they never appear in the New York Times. Swearing is not there. You're certainly not in the top 5,000. Google Books has some more stuff. Music lyrics has some crazy things. So they're quite different. There's no one corpus of English, and that's or any language, right? So that's a funny thing to sort of deal with, but at least we've got very different ones here. And what we want then is when we go to a new text that we have pretty good coverage of it. We know we'll have good coverage of these ones. This is what came out of it, and so there are a number of things here, but this is the top words in terms of average score. So I should say, we use Mechanical Turk, right? So we threw this up on Mechanical Turk. Many of you will know about it. It's Amazon's service for getting jobs done that really need people to do them, right? So looking at photos and saying what's in a photo, that's a very easy thing for a person to do. The people who will destroy us with computers haven't quite figured that out yet. So yes, I'm on a list of do not kill or the kill list. Bongard tells me he has a list somewhere. It's going to be embedded in the robots. The do not kill list. It fluctuates. It's like, you want to be on that list. Anyway, so Josh, okay, good guy. So anyway, this thing is very interesting. So yeah, you have some tasks that you really can't, make into a computer task, but many people could sort it out. So it's Mechanical Turk. If you don't know about it, right? This was a ruse that was played on many people around Europe, where a person would play this robot, this kind of metallic thing in chess up on a stage, and it would move and beat them, right? And this was, this moved around. It was this great show, moved around Europe. It was called the Mechanical Turk, sort of, dressed as a Turkish character. I don't know why. And turned out to have a person inside it, right? Had a person inside it. So it was a complete, yeah. So the joke is it looks like a robot, but it's really a person. And so this is called, the tagline is artificial intelligence. Right? So you need a theory for that one. All right, so it was they loved doing this, and it was good fun.
So we have, this is the top of these 10,000 words, and they all make sense. And this is sort of, again, this Anna Karenina story. There's not a lot of diversity up here, right? So there's lots of laugh, and the rainbow appears. We've got rainbow. Some celebration things. Weekend is good in there as well. But it's I guess it's rich. I mean, there's not a huge amount of diversity. And that's something we need to quantify, I suppose. But these are the bad words. So terrorist is down the bottom, other bad words, death is in here, things that lead to death, torture, bad things, a lot about death. Yeah, I guess it's not as if life is just necessarily here, right? It's just about, yeah, good life, right? So bad things, bad things. You can also look at, so this is their average score, right? So you know, for example, some people don't put some of these words at 1. Some people don't. I mean, maybe they're not concentrating, but it's interesting that you would not do that. So there's a standard deviation for these as well. So they're pretty tight, right? People are generally down the bottom. That's fair enough. So then you can rank them by standard deviation. So these are the words that have the highest standard deviations, right? The ones that people are most uncertain about. And so there's a lot of swearing. But then there's alcohol. There's basically sex stuff. There's there's how to run countries. So churches, capitalism. Capitalist is in here. Islam is, yeah, right. And there's also, I think socialism is somewhere, maybe on the next page. Zombies pops in. Zombies are awesome. So I don't know what's up with that, but so that's where we need those other dimensions, right? Because you know, fear would be good for them.
Does it improve it at all to lematize stuff? Like, because you have like clear root variations of a lot of them.
Oh, so you mean stemming?
So instead of having like church and churches.
So actually, so that's a good question. So in fact, we look at that because a very natural thing to do is just to stem things, right? So,
Yeah, stemming, sorry, I misheard you. Yes.
no, it's okay. So, and it turns out for some words you don't want to do it. It's a little, because the past, so the past tense is often a little bit more negative than present and future.
And I guess plurals could actually sometimes.
Yeah, no, they can mean different things. So again, it's a usage thing. We just see what people think. Yeah, and what was I going to say there? Oh yeah, so yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Just rating those words by themselves, right? So today and tomorrow are pretty good, and yesterday's back here. So the past tense gets a little bit of a, I mean, it's not a huge thing, but generally speaking, the past tense is rated a little bit lower. It's interesting. All right, so yeah, bad things are in there. Mixture of bad things. It's good to, yeah. Alcohol and cigarettes. You know, and they've thrown Jesus under the bus as well, right? So they're just not sure about that guy. Pretty good valence. So you can see the valence scores here, but then there's standard deviation. So, yeah. You know, a non-representative group for sure, right? Who's on Mechanical Turk? Yes, and that's fair enough. But on the other hand, what we do find is that it actually matches up very well with the ANU study, which was an extremely non-representative group. And then you also have things like the ANU study was translated, those words were translated directly into Spanish, and they ran it in Madrid. Another group ran it in Madrid. And those things correlated really quite well with each other. So there's a fair amount of robustness, and I don't think anyone would greatly disagree with what you see at the ends, for example, what I just showed you. So here's a interesting, so we'll see how far we get. But here's an interesting piece to all of this. Is if you take these 10,000 words and then just make a histogram of their scores. So we're not worried about how frequently they're used. So the appears, the of course turns out to be quite neutral, and it has one little block in here. So this is this thing I'm going to call scale invariant positive bias. And we are social organisms, and I think that that's something that's interestingly reflected in the English language, at least. Right? And it would be good fun to see what happens or very interesting to see what happens in other languages. We know we had this piece write-up about our work in Le Monde, and the title was something, English is a positive, is an optimistic language, question mark sort of thing. And there's a lot of debate about it, and a lot of people saying French is not. It's not. And the early evidence, we'll see, the early evidence is that French is more closed in. It doesn't have that variation. We know we have this evidence that Spanish and English aren't so different, but we'll see. And it depends who's rating it, right? Again, it depends who's rating it. We have to get Montrealers.
So if you go into a language that's symbolic instead, so like Chinese.
Yeah, I don't know. Chinese is tricky, and maybe we'll get to it. Korean, I think we have. Arabic, you know, we.
Korean is just syllabic.
Yeah. So I don't know. We will see. We will see. Yeah. All right. So you can see it here, right? So this is neutral, and there's this slant over here. There are some very bad words out here, but there just aren't as many of them. And it has this kind of interesting feature. So these are if we break it down now into the 4 corpora that we started with, so Twitter, Google Books, New York Times, and music lyrics, they all have that positive bias. I think in this case with music lyrics, the mode is actually at 5, but you can see the yellow is outweighing the gray. And these symbols, it's a little messy, but these symbols are showing you what the first 1,000 words, and then the next 1,000 words, and the next 1,000 words, right? If you break it down by frequency, where they are. And they're all relatively similar. So the common words have that distribution, and the rarer words have that same distribution as well. It could, if we were back here, it could have been that these are just rare words, and these are all the common words, or something like that, right? I mean, the way the frequency worked, but you have to look at this. There are other pieces in this plot, but Wired.com put this in their top 10 scientific figures, which I guess isn't a great thing, but they for 2 years ago, I guess. All right, here's another one. This is another fun plot. So what we've done is every word, right, so this is for the New York Times, there's the word that appears the most, and then the word that appears the second, so this is their ranking, right, in the good old zip type way. So the, I think, is the most common, it must be, so that's, right, that's appearing here. And then, so here is their average score of happiness, right? And the colors don't matter here, and there's sort of just some random jittering to kind of help separate them. But there's a little sample in sort of in boxes, okay? And underneath it, you can see this speckling that tells you where the points are really, and there's more on this side. And of course, if you collapse them, you get that distribution up there. If you collapse it this way, you get a uniform distribution because we're just putting them uniformly in terms of rank. So you see common words that are positive, right? So million, loving, party, one, love, women, these are all positive. War and funeral, again, common words, especially, so obituaries in the New York Times. War, I love to talk about war. Error, tax, bad words. And that, as you go down here, these are words that are becoming less common, but they have that, they still access that negative space, right? So wars is just much less common than war, but it's, it matches up with it. Rape is here, these are terrible words. Sadness, unemployment. Succeeded and pleasure and victories and hero and enjoyed, they're over here. So it has this scale invariance, right? So the emotional pattern of English, at least English, and at least at the level of words when viewed without context, these atoms that we use to communicate with each other are they have a positive slant to them. Which, it's just a very interesting thing to see, right? Because we do tell stories that range of how to behave that range from sort of the Ayn Rand version of things where you should be selfish and you put yourself first, and that will lead to a good society, right? That's, like it's good for you, obviously, but it's going to be good for society and it's all going to work, right? And everything else is pathetic. You're weak, you shouldn't be weak. And then, at the other end, it's something like Jainism or something where you're not allowed to touch any bugs, or let's let everyone. And oh my God, there's an ant. There's an ant. Because that will be good. That will also be good. That will destroy economic production for sure. All right, jellyfish plots. Okay, so this is out of control. This is again to show you that. These are deciles as a sort of a sliding scale, but it's again to show you that this invariance as a function of frequency holds, and now it's for all 4 of them. So if you go out to a range and you say, well, what are the deciles for happiness? Then it's not shift. It shifts a little bit. Twitter moves a little bit, and music lyrics moves a little bit. Okay, but that's all good. So that's about the words, and that leads us to this. And I'll finish with this. I mean, there are a million other things to show you, but I do want to explain this story. This is an elaborate plot, but it's really the core of, and it builds on what I just showed you, but it's sort of the core thing. Okay, so this is from Twitter. So we're taking an example, data set to look at. It's not key that it's Twitter. And this is back in, so this is October 2009 up to the first day of 2011. So you can see, I'll tell you that these spikes are Christmas here and here. I'll talk a little bit about this, I guess, on Tuesday. And what we do, so this is the plot that I showed you just before. This is where all the words are. We say, okay, well, maybe it's 5% of words are the. So if we're going to count the and it's got a neutral score and we're going to take it, 1 in 20 of our words is going to be the, we're sort of not helping ourselves, right? And the, of, and, a, there are 6 words that typically take up 20, because this whole parallel thing that you know about, 20% of words in the English language and generally in text are composed of just 6 words, right? It's a ridiculous hierarchical thing that we have. So you can take those out. They're all neutral. And that's not a bad thing to do. And then we think, all right, well, what if we just keep spreading this apart and see how this behaves? So that's what's going on here. This is sort of the key plot, and there's this delta H average, which is the sort of the half width of this window. So we're going to open it out and open it out, and we're going to toss out all of those guys and just use these ones to score a text. And so as we do that, so this is where we use this bottom time series. It's just a pure time series for Twitter. We just use everything that came into our feed. We get about 10% of all tweets, which is a lot of data. That's where it is to start with. It's kind of a low average, but that's because it's being pulled down by lots of these and ofs and ands and so on. So as we open this window out, we're throwing away all these neutral ones, and it starts to lift up. This positivity starts to kind of pull us up. So you get the same kind of pattern, right? This is a Christmas because everyone's saying Happy Christmas, right? And that's okay. That's fine. And that's happening here. But it becomes, this is like changing the contrast on a picture, right? I think I have the right word there. So it's very, very instrument-like. I mean, it is an instrument. We call it an instrument, but it has that feel of a physical instrument. Changing the contrast, and you're getting bigger and bigger resolution. But eventually, you don't have any words. You're not assessing it, right? And it goes to static and falls apart. Okay. So what we'd like to see then is how consistent are these time series? Yes, the base is changing, but that's not a big deal. We're kind of worried about the relative things. And that's what this plot shows you. So for each one of these time series, they correspond to a width of this window, and this is the width of the window opening as we go across here. And so this is a symmetric plot because we're just going to correlate, we're going to do a correlation of time series. And so what you see, and this is the plot here, 1 is strong. So you see, as you open that window out a little bit, you have a nice correlation with these time series here. These guys are all pretty good. They're pretty consistent. But then there's a change around 0.5 where they start to not agree with time series that come from more open windows. And then there's a pretty good block in here, and this is what we've identified, between 0.5 and 2.5, where the time series are pretty similar. There's a kind of a break here. I think that's where the word no disappears, right? It's thrown out of the ones that we're using to assess things. And so we've said that this is roughly a good place to tune around in. You might be, going in this direction is useful for using more words, so you get a stronger signal. This way you get a better contrast, so you can separate things apart. So there's some value in doing that. All these plots tell you about how much coverage of the text you get as you move out through here, right? So eventually you lose coverage. How many words you're evaluating with. And the point that we have here corresponds to this time series, corresponds to this width, which is 1. It's a half width of 1. So we're throwing away all words of between 4 and 6. That's that point there. It's this point here. It means we have about 3,700 words left out of the 10,000 that we use to evaluate text. And that's just a reasonable place. You have to use something to have some consistency across your work. And that's a reasonable baseline for us to connect things. All right, so I mean, it goes back to this kind of very interesting features of language, at least the English language, that allows us to do this. There's nothing, this thing isn't distorting all over the place. It's actually remaining remarkably consistent. And you could have had a theory about it beforehand, but you could also just look at the real world. Okay. I'll show you this one more plot too. This is a berserk thing. So this is the average happiness. It's been normalized for words. And this is for the hour between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. for all of 2010 on Twitter. So we just took all of those sort of lunchtime hours and averaged them all over. And here we have how often they appear, the frequency. And so the contribution they would give to the score is their size, right? So, and these ones are a positive contribution, these ones are a negative contribution. So no appears quite frequently, has a negative score, so it's going to subtract this much off. There's a little V in there. It's got, it appears so much, even though it's so neutral, that it gives a tiny little tweak. Love is over here. It's doing a good job, right? It's relatively very positive and appears quite a bit. Me and you, they're good words. So this is to show you what happens as we take away that middle piece, right? And then it changes the way these words. It looks like a bad lung X-ray, right? But as we move out, this is the plus or minus 1, 1. This is the kind of thing. So what we're going to do is take all of these guys, add them all up, their sizes, and add all of these sizes up, plus for this, minus for this, and that's a score for a text. And these lines here give you, ridiculously, they give you where words match up, right? So you could have words that appear more or less frequently, but if their happiness goes up and down, they give the same contribution. So that opens up, and you see what's left at the end, I guess here, right? So we die, hurt, and hell, and some swear words, and so on, and all these things, nice things, happiness. We're done, right? So we're totally done. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the fun results we have on Tuesday, and then I'll give you the big story about complexity. Okay, so people, yes. Fun.